Thank you for joining the Doctor Whisperer. I am your host, Sharon Fekete, and I am happy to bring you a show where we talk about the business of medicine. I hope that you enjoy it. Please feel free to share, subscribe, and pass it on. Enjoy the show. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me. Today is going to be a little different because I have decided to be vulnerable, which is not unlike me, but to share a personal experience I had very recently going to the doctor's office. And because I am Dr. Whisperer and I have been in healthcare for such a long time, 20 plus years now, I think it's important that you hear from me how I feel about what just happened to me. So, and the only way I thought to do this was to do it on my show, because I would have an opportunity to frame it so you could understand why this is so important to me. It's so important to me because I hope that it can help somebody watching or listening to continue to advocate for yourself and your own health. Because what is now in my medical record permanently, unless I decide to take legal action, which I highly doubt I will, it's upsetting. It's upsetting to me. So I will start this by telling you that my family has been on my case about going to see a doctor, mostly my husband, because I work and consult for doctors and I'm talking to doctors every day. A doctor just texted me. I don't usually go to the doctor too much. I'm very, very regular with my gynecologist. My mom had breast cancer, so I make sure to get mammograms and honor her being cancer-free for many years now by going to that regularly. Never miss my gynecologist appointment. Shout out to Dr. Ritter. So I haven't been very diligent with primary care because I have the great blessing to have access to a lot of doctors. If I was to get sick, I could maybe text one of them or call them. I'm blessed, as I mentioned, and very privileged to be able to do that. Now, I'm also very healthy, so I don't typically get sick. But if I did, I have a few resources, as you can imagine, considering the name of my company. So that said, I decided to make my husband happy. I'm turning 50 in October, and I would go and get myself a primary care. I had a primary care and she moved back to Ohio, and I was very bummed because I really liked her and I just haven't gotten a new one since. And that was a few years ago. He loves his primary care doctor, and this one in particular is not accepting new patients. It's a little much. He sees my husband, see me. No, we're good. I'm going to find my own. So what did I do? Well, because I really do love integrative medicine, which means I believe in science and treating the whole person. I like an integrative approach to my mental health and my physical health. So I'm going to put that out there so you all understand that I believe in science. But unfortunately, in this world of medicine, there's a lot of drama that comes with the Eastern and the Western side. And they both have terrible things to say about each other, if I'm being candid with you, which I plan on being through this whole show today. I've heard the worst of the worst. I've heard the MDs talk negatively about DOs. I've heard DOs talk negatively about MDs. I've heard MDs talk negatively about acupuncturists. I've heard psychiatrists talk about therapists poorly. It just goes on. Okay. So 20 plus years, I've heard a lot. So for me personally, I do like the Eastern Western approach. And believe me, if there was something wrong, I'm calling up my MD and I'm asking him his advice or her advice. And I'm taking that all into consideration. I am an advocate for myself. Okay, let's get to the point. So I decided to look up integrative medicine doctor near me. Whoops. My microphone almost fell if you're listening and not watching. So I was so excited because I found an integrative medicine doctor that works in a hospital that is 2 minutes away from my office. How is that possible? How exciting. In 2022, I can go see an integrative medicine doctor at the hospital that I truly respect here in my neighborhood. Well, long story short, as a typical New Yorker would say, and a long story short means it's a long story, but I'm not going to get into the details. He was a very nice doctor, and his assistant was very nice as well. Everything else that went on in terms of the scheduling and my entire experience wasn't great. I paid cash. I paid $250 to see this physician, and I have wonderful health insurance, which is also a blessing. My husband works for UPS. They happen to offer the best health insurance for the entire family that is 100% paid for by the company. I know that's unbelievable, but that's true. So even though I have this great health insurance, I made a decision because of my experience in the medical industry that it would be so wonderful and beneficial for me to see an integrative medicine doctor in a hospital that I really respect. As I said, he was great. The experience was not, I will not be going back. They could use me as a consultant. It's not going to happen though, because it's a hospital system. So I thought, you know what? I really just I just got to see this primary care doctor. So I go and I Google primary care doctor near me. And it takes me to ZocDoc. So if you are unfamiliar about ZocDoc, I have been a fan since I managed a pediatric practice many, many moons ago. ZocDoc is real-time place where you can find a physician and read real-time reviews and schedule your appointment, see pictures of the office. It's a phenomenal resource. So I go to ZocDoc and I find this doctor that happens to be in a Walgreens, because Walgreens has this wonderful new company called Village Medical, I believe. And I thought, well, let me just read these reviews, because he was at the top of the list, this doctor, because the reviews were so positive. I have actually never read so many positive reviews about a primary care doctor that I thought, why wouldn't I go there? I believe the people. I mean, they were writing how great he was in caps. So I make the appointment. Now I'm very purposeful about my appointments that I make with physicians because of what I do for a living. I know it is best to get the first appointment. It is also best to try to get into a doctor first appointment on a Monday, because they have had 2 days of not seeing patients if they're lucky enough to not have to do rounds in a hospital that weekend. And they have spent time, that's thunder, if you heard that. So they've spent time with their family and their friends, and they're refreshed, and they come back Monday. I'm the first patient, and I'm going to get happy doctor. That's a strategy, and I highly recommend that you use it. So here I am, booked for 7:20 in the morning. I go see the doctor. The experience is just fine. The woman at the front desk is just fine. I don't have to wait very long to see the doctor. But what happened was, which is not reflected in my now permanent medical record, is that this physician chose to talk at me. I went in there for a specific reason. I'm going to be 50 years old in October. I have gained weight like majority of the world during the pandemic. I'm also perimenopausal. I think that diagnosis is nowhere on my medical record, but because of the conversations that I have with doctors, it's very likely. I'm 49 and I have all the symptoms. So I'm going to see my gynecologist next. Anyway, so what happened next was I decided, even though this physician was talking at me and really did not ask me a question about myself, he saw that it said weight loss, And he went into a very specific way for me to lose weight, which is intermittent fasting, along with a calorie deficit. He also suggested cardio first thing in the morning and to take my temperature every day, like right when I first wake up. He also recommended we were going to do blood work, and he gave me a very long history of how he used to be into weight training and strength training and how important it is, but it's probably more important that I start with cardio. So I listened as long as I could. About a half hour went by, and very matter-of-factly, I said, well, are you going to ask me anything about myself? Because you have just been talking at me for the last half hour. And I was very matter-of-fact, and I wasn't yelling. I was talking just like this. Now, if you have followed me on social media, you have heard me before talking about how when I speak very directly and I don't raise my voice, people assume that I'm yelling at them. Well, I don't know if it's just because I'm a woman and I'm confident and I'm direct and I'm saying something that might make somebody feel uncomfortable. I get labeled somebody that might be, I don't know, hyper irritable. We're going to get to that word. So this doctor was obviously offended by what I said and began to backtrack. And he said that people come to me because I'm a physician and I have experience and my job is to educate you. And I respect that. But in my notes that you have to fill out all that paperwork, I very clearly wrote that I am sober 28 years and a recovering drug addict, alcoholic that suffered from depression. And I was very specific about that because this is the first time I'm being very matter of fact about saying these things to a physician, because I feel like I have done some damage to my metabolism and to my body because I have been on so many diets as a woman who is trying to stay fit as she gets older. So back in 2020, pre-pandemic, in January, I made a decision as a woman in recovery that I was no longer going to go on any more diets and that I was going to live a life of health, exercise, meditation, nature walks, and beyond. And I wasn't going to go back into the trap of diets because I had done so many and it wasn't doing me any good anymore. But he did not hear any of that because he was mansplaining to me about how I should go and now do intermittent fasting, which I found comical because, of course, I had already done intermittent fasting. I had done it to such an extreme that one time I didn't eat for almost 3 days. So when I wrote my book in 2019, The Broken Road to Mental Health in Life and in Business, I mentioned how this happened in business. As a woman, you are expected to look a certain way, and that takes a lot of work. And I did all the diets, and I went and tried all the different programs, and I worked really hard at being very thin. And now I'm evolving, and I decided that I wasn't going to do that anymore. And it has been so hard. It has been one of the hardest things I have done in my recovery. I'm uncomfortable in my body, but I want to have something sustainable. And by the time I got to this doctor, I was so disappointed in what he was saying that when I began to speak, I started to cry. I was obviously emotional. That was not mentioned in my chart. And I told him about how I was a drug addict and an alcoholic in recovery for 28 years, and that I didn't want to do any more diets, and that now I'm being told to do intermittent fasting. It's not good for me mentally. And then he said that, well, maybe because I was in academia for so long, maybe I wasn't listening. So I felt like we were getting somewhere. like we were going to move the needle. And I'm always trying to process how sometimes I'm just annoying. Like I'm inquisitive. I'm going to ask questions, but I'm also not there to be spoken to like I'm some kind of a moron that doesn't know anything about my body. And that's how it began to feel. We interrupt this awesome podcast to share with you about our sponsor, TIE Technology. TIE Technology was founded with the thought that every customer deserves exceptional customer services. So if you know of any company that has a phone system where the auto attendant doesn't really sound good, you press 1 and you think you're going to go to a live person, but you end up with a broken recording, it's probably time that you call TIE Technology. And if you mention this podcast, you will get the first 3 months for free. So make sure you mention the Dr. Whisperer podcast show. Check them out. Are you still running your medical practice like it's 1990? Well, what about Riva Global Medical Virtual Assistants? A medical virtual assistant, I promise you, is the way to run your medical practice today. Why? Because you can save, thousands of dollars. No more paying for health insurance, no more worrying about office space. You also have trained professionals. These wonderful human beings get trained, and they have a client service manager that makes sure that your VA that you're working with for your practice is hitting all the goals that you need to make sure that your practice is run efficiently and friendly. Check out Riva Global Medical Virtual Assistants today. So I told him very matter-of-factly that I've spent the entire half hour while he was talking at me thinking about how I was going to get up and leave this visit without disrupting not him or the patients or the staff, but me. How I was going to be able to walk out and not have a bad day, because I'm very comfortable walking away from any situation that I don't feel good in. But I thought, I'm going to give this guy an opportunity to make it. So I brought up the fact that I work with integrative medicine doctors, and he had a very physical reaction to it and started talking about alternative medicine. And I called him out on it very calmly. And I said, "Ooh, you seem to be having a reaction to the fact that I have worked with some integrative medicine doctors." And he denied it. Well, I'm going to read the note for you all before I continue, but I will say that I stayed in that appointment. I was there for 2 hours. At the end of it, he said he wanted to do blood work. There was no exam. And he asked me, I went to shake his hand when it was done, and he asked me if he could give me a hug. I had told him when we were breaking through, which I thought we were breaking through together, I had told him how disappointed I was in the healthcare system and how I had just gone and paid out of pocket for an integrative medicine doctor and still walked away unsatisfied. And how here I was now with this physician that got all of these reviews, but was being spoken to in a manner that I don't believe I deserve. So now I'm going to read to you what was in my notes. So I had a follow-up appointment scheduled for next week. When this show airs, it will be the day that I was supposed to go see this doctor for a follow-up. I decided to take his advice. I started taking my temperature every morning and tracking it, very conscious about doing more cardio in the morning. I thought, you know what? I'm willing to get help from this doctor. And then I got an email from their very, very efficient technology that said, maybe you forgot about some of the things that you talked about in your session with your doctor. Here are the notes. So I got to read my notes. So there were 3 things on the notes that the doctor wrote. One of them was obesity. Now, I'm not affected by that because I work in this industry. So if your BMI is at a certain level, they will say obesity, and I'm fine with that. I don't believe I'm obese. I know I need to lose some weight. And I'm obviously fine with it. I'm saying it on a podcast. So I'm not concerned that I'm obese, and I'm not offended that he said that. That is something that a lot of people have trouble with, and I get that. I don't, because I've had long doctors that are actually involved in weight loss and hormones and yada, yada, yada. The second one was just about my blood work that he had ordered. And the third was hyper-irritability. Hyper-irritability. Let me add another syllable there. Patient was agitated by my discussion on the physiology of weight loss after requesting me to answer her question on weight loss. Patient may prefer, this is good. Patient may prefer holistic medicine practitioners based on observation during our discussion today. So my conversation about believing in science and treating the whole body is now that I prefer holistic medicine. Fantastic. That's in my notes forever. She further insulted the physician that he works at Walgreens and how I can have my reviews the way how can I have my reviews the way I do if I do not listen to her? And her physician friends in New York would laugh at her for coming into a Walgreens to seek out primary care. What I said to him was, because I work with physicians and I have an integrative medicine doctor in New York City, they would think, why would you go to a doctor at Walgreens when you could have access to care in my own office? I did not make fun of him. I obviously don't care because I went there, and I'm also saying this on a podcast. And if I had a great experience, I would have shared all about it. Trust me, I'm not worried what anybody thinks about the choices that I make. Pretty sure that's evident in the book that I wrote. So he went on to say that there is a lack of insight and judgment with patient. Reassurance was provided, but failed to be effective. After further insults, I advised her she may leave my office at any time, and I am not holding her against her will, and she wishes to remain present for her visit. What actually happened was that I told him that I was thinking about leaving the office the entire time because he wasn't listening to me and he was talking at me. That's how he put it in the notes in my chart. She still requested to have blood work drawn. I find her demeanor with myself threatening in nature. Advised staff to exercise caution with proceeding with the patient on further visits. That, my friends, is now in my electronic health records and for a life, unless I decide to make a change, unless I decide to take action. Those notes are in a chart. I am telling you right now, I was 100% not agitated. I was aggravated with the way he was speaking to me. That is correct. I did not raise my voice. And of course, there should be no reason for anybody to exercise caution because I have a brain in my head and can speak up for myself and tell a doctor when I disagree with them. That, to me, is the ultimate slap in my face. And I would say, for a woman, I have never, ever felt like somebody was literally talking down at me. And I really do believe that it was because he must have thought I was ignorant, that I was like a Google person that just Google symptoms. And because I've run medical practices, I've heard everybody say all the things about Google moms, about why people don't vaccinate. I've heard all the stories. I've worked in the industry for a long damn time. And for somebody to write these words that are so untrue, and there's no ounce of accountability on his part, is disgraceful. It's disgraceful. And I have had such a fantastic day. I don't want to continue to think about this anymore. I decided to table it until tomorrow if I'm going to take any action. I've done a review on ZocDoc. So if you want to know who it is, just go to ZocDoc, look up my name. It'll pop up. Maybe not today, but certainly this week. HIPAA doesn't mean it. Listen, if I decide to take my own electronic healthcare records and talk about it publicly, it's my health record. So don't come at me with this HIPAA stuff. I also am not, I'm not concerned about what somebody else thinks about what I decide to do with my own health and my own life. This doctor has absolutely no self-awareness. The fact that I stayed in that office and I went through all of those feelings and I decided, you know what, maybe I should just stay here. Maybe he could help me. And then to read hyper irritability. Nowhere, might I add, that did he mention that I was emotional, that I had cried because of my frustration about the industry of healthcare. Nowhere does it say that. Nowhere does it say that maybe I'm about to go through menopause. Nowhere does it say that. That my weight gain could be associated with that. Nowhere does it say that. I hope that you, after watching or listening, continue to speak up for yourself and never settle just because they're a doctor. This physician will continue to work at Walgreens, and I don't think that's a bad thing. As a matter of fact, there is this phenomenal urgent care that not a lot of people know about. It's called GuideWell, and it's run by Florida Blue. And I went to one. It's incredible. I wouldn't go anywhere else ever. I wouldn't care if it was in Walgreens or CVS. If I had a great physician with great staff, and I walked into this office and it was really nice. You walked in, Walgreens is to the right, the medical center's to the left. It was very professional. It was very clean. The staff was lovely. They had a hard time drawing blood. So does everybody. They remain very professional. But they've all been warned to exercise caution with proceeding with me on future visits. So I called and canceled my visit today. I won't be returning. They don't deserve my time. That doctor doesn't deserve my time. And I'm not about to try to teach a physician that is at so ground zero when it comes to self-awareness. It's not worth my time or my energy, but it is worth my energy to talk about it with you today. I hope that you always advocate for yourself. I hope that if you feel the way I felt sitting in that seat, everything in my body was saying, this isn't right. This doesn't feel good. You shouldn't be here. I stayed. I won't be back. And because I stayed and I didn't listen, I should have left. This is in my chart. And these are all lies. I would say I am one of the most open-minded people. I wouldn't say that I have hyper irritability unless when I'm PMSing. Just ask my husband. But it suggested things like working out and diet and exercise. I told him all about how I do strength training and I walk in the park 2 miles every day except Thursday, and I ride my bike over the weekend up to 20 miles. But he wasn't listening to me, and that's okay. And I will be fine. I will find a physician that will listen. As a matter of fact, ironically, somebody that I love for a long time that I've worked with and is a friend just texted me. And so I had already made the decision that I was going to go back and see him. But I know that we deserve better than this, and that you should always speak up for yourself, and that you should also consider that your words can be misconstrued, and you absolutely should read the notes that are being put in your electronic health records because they follow you for life. So thank you for watching or listening. I never shared about this after it happened, and it was a few weeks ago, because I felt so bad about what happened at that doctor visit, and then the one I had had 2 weeks prior, which, by the way, I wanted that doctor, the integrative medicine doctor, to refer me to a dietitian, and he did. And he was lovely, like I said, and a great acupuncturist. an MD at that too. So for all those who say I might prefer holistic medicine practitioners, I'd love to see them say this in front of an MD that also believes in acupuncture. He said he was going to refer me to a dietitian, and he did. And that dietitian called me 2 weeks later. 2 weeks. Unacceptable. It's unacceptable. Now, I could understand if it was a therapist or a psychiatrist or somebody in mental health right now, but a dietitian, nobody in the office could have called me within 2 weeks. Anyway, we need to do a lot of work in this industry, and it can be very lonely to be somebody that speaks up and speaks out and speaks their truth. It is not easy, but it's necessary. So I hope that you will take this information and be careful when you go see a doctor and it doesn't feel right, or you don't feel like he's listening to you or she's listening to you, that you make a choice and go see somebody else, because there are certainly a plethora of phenomenal physicians out there that deserve your time. So thank you for being here today. And I hope you will pass this on to somebody that might be feeling similar, have gone through something. Keep advocating for yourself. You are worth it, as am I. Bye. So don't forget, if you mention that you've seen the show or listened to it on the podcast, mention Thai Technology and you will get 3 months for free. They're the best. So if you want to party like it's 1999, but run your medical practice like it's 2022, don't forget to check out Riva Global Medical Virtual Assistants.